Hello parents and professionals. Today I'm going to be talking to you about encouraging those young people in your life to do more independent problem solving. So if you know a young person who needs to become more independent in their life, then just keep on watching. So I'm going to be sharing something with you that I've probably covered in a few other episodes before now, but I feel like this is one of those things that I can't say enough because it's difficult to do and because it's easy to let this slip. What I'm noticing a lot of at the moment is young people who are expressing anxieties and concerns about being back at school. There's lots of social anxiety coming up where they've been quite cocooned for the last 12 months. And there's other sorts of anxieties about going back to school when, really we are still dealing with COVID and there is still all of the risks associated with that. What is easy to do and is not necessarily the right thing to do is to step in, swoop in, and start problem solving for your child or for the young person that you're working with. Because when we do that, we actually hold them back from the great creative minds that they have that are really, really good at problem solving. And it puts them into this position of almost subscribing to a belief that they can't come up with their own solutions and that they are in some way inferior, weaker, incompetent. And that's not your intention, I know that. But that's the message that they, on an unconscious level, end up picking up. And it means that in future, when there's another challenging situation that comes their way, they're much more inclined to need to reach out and ask for advice and support around how to deal with it, rather than coming up with their own solutions. Now, what I'm talking about here is really just a small shift, but it's a really significant and important one. And it's the difference between coming up with answers and advice and solutions for them when they express that they're experiencing some kind of a problem, and instead turning it back into a question that you then pose to them so that they have to start generating their own ideas and coming up with their own solutions. And by doing that, we're not going to be taking away that power and responsibility from them. We're showing them that we trust them to come up with their own good ideas and that we trust them to be resourceful, competent human beings. And it can feel like almost like a bit of an oxymoron, like it's a little bit jumbled in our heads to think, I am helping them by not helping them. Like, how does that work? But that's how it works. Sometimes, and this happens with adults too, this isn't an issue that's exclusive to children and young people. Think about your own lives and the people that you know. We all know someone who we have a habit of swooping in and saving whenever they have a problem. And lo and behold, they appear to be the person that has quite a lot of problems, like over and over again. There's always some kind of an issue going on with that particular person. And it might be because they've never learned the skills to be able to independently fix stuff for themselves. They're used to people swooping in and saving them, and so they've grown into adults now who have this kind of expectation that that's what should happen. And when difficulties arise, they get really stuck and really overwhelmed by what's going on around them. We don't want our children and young people growing into adults like that, if we're being truly honest. We want them to be quite resourceful and able to depend upon themselves. In the same way, I had a client once who was someone that would find life difficult, generally speaking, and some of the difficulties that would show up to me just felt like, just everyday annoyances, but not that big of a deal. But for her, they would be like a really big obstacle to her progressing and doing the everyday things in life. And for me, I always felt like I needed to just crack on and overcome those things because, in all honesty, I had bigger stuff to contend with. And I always remember her saying that if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And whilst that applies in the sense of how productive we might be being, I think that same rule also applies in the sense of if you want a problem solved, speak to someone who has ongoing problems that they are solving, because they're already in a problem solving mindset. They already believe in themselves and their ability to be able to fix things. So if you go to someone who's good at fixing things, they're just going to fix your things for you. But what we want to have is not young people who know who to reach out to fix their problems. We want them to become the kind of people that can fix their own problems so that they become fully capable and independent of doing that for themselves. So one of the best things that we can do is to turn the questions that they have into a question and just lay it straight back out at them so that they then have to problem solve their own issue that they've brought up. In the same way, don't jump in with a solution if they are just voicing a problem that they have and not asking you for advice. I've just recorded a people building podcast on my other channel all about giving great advice, and there's some really good tips in there about how to do it and how to deliver it and when to do it. And sometimes people just want to offload stuff, and that's the same for young people too. Sometimes they want to say, this thing happened today and I wasn't happy about it, but they're not asking you to solve the problem. They're just offloading, they're just sharing it with you, and that's okay. So don't feel the need to react to that necessarily. You could ask them, do you want to think up some ways to be able to get through that or to resolve that issue? But don't assume that that's what they're asking you for, because if you do, then again, it creates this habit of them just kind of unloading, dumping stuff on you because they know that you're going to swoop in and save the day. And actually, our job is to make them good at this problem solving for themselves, not to solve the problems for them all the time. We can also start to become way more proactive at creating problems for them, which may sound mean, but what I'm talking about here is giving them some roles and responsibilities so that they begin to take those things on for themselves. I am part of a study group, and within that study group, there's a WhatsApp group, and it's amazing, like the difference in how, and these are adults, the difference in how these grown people think about just how resourcefulness and how resourceful they can be. In short, there are different challenges that are posed to us, like different problems that we need to go and solve, and all of the answers are out there somewhere. But for some of these people, it's like they don't even go and look. They don't even try. We don't want to raise a generation of young people who don't even try to come up with the answers, who don't even try to find solutions. So we've got to be quite proactive at times at sort of putting problems in their way so that they get used to going out there and resolving different issues for themselves. In fact, we want our young people to be excited about doing that so that when challenging stuff happens, they're like, oh yes, I like a challenge, I want to go and find out the way to resolve that for myself, and that they can enjoy that feeling of being independent, because you get a really good kick and a really good buzz out of figuring stuff out for yourself. And you'll remember from times in your own past where you have done well at something, the sense of pride that you get from it. Maybe you get to see other people, praising you and being proud of you too. So by giving them opportunities to solve problems, to come up against challenges and figure them out, we're actually opening them up to this really wonderful experience of feeling good about themselves and having other people have pride in them too. So we don't need to sort of put them in this protective bubble wrapped world where they don't get exposed to difficulties and challenges. One of the things I end up talking about quite a lot when I'm running workshops, especially with adults and parents, is around resilience. And we have a lot of requests from schools in particular who say we want our young people to learn resilience. My personal belief around this is that resilience isn't something that you can teach necessarily. Resilience is something that comes from the opportunities that we expose young people to. Think about it this way: if you have super soft hands, like baby soft hands, you're not going to grow a thick skin on your hands unless you do some manual labor that actually toughens your skin up, and then you start to develop a thicker skin. But the thicker skin comes from the gritty work that you end up doing, like literally rubbing up against hard stuff. And resilience is the same. Resilience is developed because we rub up against hard times, and it gives us a thicker skin on an emotional level. If we are only ever giving our children experiences that are cushioned and soft and gentle, we can't expect them to develop any resilience because they're not rubbing up against any scratchy bark in life that's going to give them that thicker skin that we want them to have. So if you want your young person to be a resilient young person, you've also within yourself got to get comfortable with the idea of seeing them struggle sometimes, seeing them go through discomfort, and deliberately putting some of those uncomfortable situations in front of them and enforcing that problem-solving attitude in them so that they begin to think in that more independent problem-solving way. And that is everything that I wanted to share and preach to you today. So I hope everybody's doing really well. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, then go ahead and click the red subscribe button. If you found this video useful or interesting in some way, then please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell so that you get notified the next time I upload a video. But for now, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!